to Kentucky, where we're seeing photos of Breonna Taylor's apartment following the deadly police encounter for the very first time. Now, these photos, released by Taylor's family lawyer, show the damage caused by the police after they entered the apartment with a search warrant and fired more than 20 rounds on March 13th. Taylor was hit at least 8 times. After gaining national attention, the case will be handed over to the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office once the local investigation is complete. So Tessa Duvall has been reporting extensively on this fatal shooting. She's a reporter for the Courier-Journal in Louisville. Thank you so much for joining us, Tessa. So we're learning more information about what happened that night, and we're seeing these photos. Are the photos giving us any additional information about why things went so badly?
Absolutely. These photos are showing just the extent of damage that took place in her apartment. And so what we've learned, through court documents, through a lawsuit, through Breonna Taylor's family attorneys, is that officers fired from multiple locations. And so with these photos, we are able to tell, really the extent of the damage in her home. I mean, in her kitchen, in her bathroom, in bedrooms, the patio door, sliding glass patio door into her apartment. You can tell there are bullet holes through the curtains that were drawn and the glass is shattered. And so that really backs up one of the large claims made in this lawsuit, is that, officers were firing from multiple locations and perhaps did not have a line of sight when they were shooting.
We also know that the judge issued a no-knock warrant. What does that mean? Why is that a critical step in this case?
Absolutely. So that is one of the really contentious points about this case. So there were 2 warrants executed the night that Breonna Taylor was killed. There was the one for her apartment, which had her name and 2 other individuals on it. And then there was a second warrant for a home about 10 miles away. They were executed at about the same time. This was in relation to a narcotics investigation, and police believed that they had seen one of the suspects who has a history of drug offenses at her apartment picking up a box. Breonna had dated this individual a couple of years ago, and so based on having seen him go to her apartment, knowing that she had this connection to him, they got no-knock warrants signed off by a judge for both of these locations. So this is a huge sticking point because, Kenneth Walker, who's Breonna Taylor's boyfriend, was at home with her, said that he did not hear a knock, as well as neighbors, multiple neighbors who Breonna Taylor's family attorneys have talked to, all said they didn't hear knocking. And so this is really significant because if Kenneth Walker did not hear a knock and believed that, his home, or his girlfriend's home where he was staying was being broken into, that gives significant context as to why he fired a shot. He does not deny that he fired this shot when he heard the door being broken in. But what he's saying is he didn't know it was a police officer. And so now he is being charged with attempted murder of a police officer because he fired the shot and one of the officers was hit in the leg and had to undergo surgery. And so he, he's facing these very serious charges, and Breonna Taylor's family and attorneys feel very seriously that part of getting justice in this situation is seeing those charges dropped against him.
And Tessa, I feel like we got to take maybe a little bit of step back, because I feel like a lot of people may have not even heard about the story or just starting to hear about the story. Breonna was in her apartment at the time when this no-knock warrant was issued and officers came in. She was sleeping on the couch, right? She had absolutely no idea what was happening.
Right. So Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, were in bed, according to statements made by her attorney. They had already gone to bed for the evening. It's important to know that this warrant was served around 12:40 a.m. So, the fact that they were in bed is very likely. So, from what they're saying is from Kenneth Walker's perspective, this is the middle of the night. Someone's banging on their door. He says that police did not identify themselves. important thing to note here is that police are saying that officers identified themselves and only used a battering ram after no one answered the door. But the warrant that was signed off on was a no-knock warrant.
Well, and Tessa, you spoke with both the attorney, Ben Crump, and Breonna Taylor's mother. We've seen Attorney Crump give interviews before, but I'm really interested in what Breonna Taylor's mother had to tell you.
Of course, she's devastated by this. That was her daughter who was working in healthcare at this crucial time, during a pandemic. She said her daughter had big plans for her future, that she wanted to buy a house and she really wanted to become a registered nurse. And those were goals that she was working toward. She wanted to start a family, and she was a really big family person. Her family was really important to her, and she was really tight with her friends. And, one thing that her mother said to me was, I don't think they know what they took from us. So, really, this is a huge loss for them and their family. And I think for the last 2 months, they've wondered why this hasn't been talked about more. And so that's where we see, Attorney Ben Crump come in. He's got experience with a lot of these really high-profile cases involving the really controversial deaths of Black Americans, especially when police are involved.
Tessa, before we let you go, I got to ask you about the top prosecutor. That person has recused themselves from this case. What's going on with that?
So what we've learned is that the Commonwealth attorney in this case, who would normally review the case after the police are done with their investigation, has decided to recuse himself because he is choosing to, or rather, he is prosecuting Kenneth Walker, the boyfriend, for this attempted murder of a police officer charge. So now the Attorney General's office will review this, decide if any criminal charges need to be brought, and U.S. Attorney's office and the local FBI office will also review the case.
All right, Tessa Duvall, thank you so much for your reporting. Really appreciate you taking the time out to talk to us.